All right. So, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Um, I'm going to get started. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to put them into the chat. I'll go on ahead and open it on my screen so I can see. And let me make sure that I have, there we go, meeting group chat. All right. So, who are we? We are Last Chapter Press. We are a woman-owned and run romance publishing house. When you work with us, you work directly with myself and Sandra. You can see her there, her name. We are the face and the hands of doing the work. We know your story and we get to know you. We're happy to have you here. So, this is a little bit about me, why I should be teaching this class. Sorry about the little ding. I'm Julie Stamps. I have two grown children, one spoiled cat currently, and an amazing hubby who is probably the inspiration for a lot of my heroes. I've written romance for over a decade now, which started when my son, he basically told me to stop reading all the romances and just write one. So I went on ahead and took his advice, and that started a decade of writing over now almost 300 stories. Now, granted, some of those are about 1,500 words. However, it's a lot of words. So before that, I wrote grants and documentation for a disability services department at a local university, and I ran fundraising for a homeless shelter here in Omaha. I write mostly spicy romance. It ranges from contemporary to paranormal to LGBT. I was a finalist in the Rita Awards with In His Arms under my pen name, Jules Dixon. And I am a 26-time a number one romance category bestseller on Amazon. I'm a trained book coach and author coach, and I use my psychology and business degrees both in my writing and coaching. I love to help writers become published authors, period. That's it. And I'm really happy to help you start or expand your writing journey. No matter where you are with your writing, I hope that these 4 sessions will help you learn and grow. Okay, let's get started. So what are these sessions going to be? Last Chapter Press is holding a contest, and we'd love if your story was entered, but we'll understand if you're just not quite ready for that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. These sessions are going to prepare you to write a story. They're going to be quick moving, they're going to be jam-packed with information, and hopefully they'll be easy to understand with no nonsense, no upsell that'll cost you anything. It's all free. It's all free. There'll be a worksheet that is provided to you at the end of each section, okay? So that you have something to go off of for later. It'll be enough to write a romance story, but I'm going to encourage you to always strive to learn more. You'll be able to find this lesson on our YouTube channel, and I don't have that up currently. However, I will add our YouTube channel to the chat down here. So you can copy that for your needs. But today we're going to be touching on 2 topics, basically, story concept and characters. So those are the first 2 keys of a story, and let's get started. So story concept, I like to think of a story like a recipe. Hopefully some of you are cooks or bakers out there. So when you're baking, you can make a bread out of 3 ingredients, yeast, water, and flour. And of course, you have to have time to let it rise. It won't taste very good because there's no flavoring in it, but it can be done. It'll be a little bit bland, but some people like bland. But then you start adding other ingredients in there. First, usually salt. Salt is the 4th ingredient that most bakers will add. And it also helps the dough to rise, and it gives it that savory hint that we are used to in bread. But this is where it gets exciting. Then you can add whatever special ingredients you like. So maybe some spices, some sugar, some cheese. Maybe you add cinnamon and brown sugar and butter. What does that make? A cinnamon roll. So you can also add like herbs for a savory bread that maybe you want to toast and put butter all over. I'm kind of making myself hungry now, so I need to stop. A romance story concept is like that. So we have our base recipe for a romance story. And the base recipe is always the same. It's person meets person, they fall in love. That's pretty boring, right? And it's only 7 words. Not many people will pay money for 7 words, although I've been surprised, I'm sure, in the past. There are actually romances on Amazon that are 8 pages long, which is about 2,000 words. So I'm not going to share the link to what those are, but you can look up Amazon short reads 15 minutes and you'll see them. So I will warn you that some of them are not for the faint of heart and a little bit racy. But don't go look right now because I want you to listen and learn so you can write an 8 or 888-page story. So back to the story concept. After we know our base of the story, we have to add something to liven it up. That's where goals, motivations, and conflicts come into play. We'll go over what those are in just a moment. And then you add the seasonings and the spices, the personalities. So, like setting for a story. Will it be in the country with a slower pace of life? Will it be in the city with the hustle and the bustle and the loudness and all of the people? Will it be a vacation setting where someone's trying to get away from something? Will it be in a foreign country where they don't know anything and they don't know where they're going? And then we create unique personalities to give depth to characters. We sprinkle in those side characters, and that you can think about that like, you know how sometimes there's cinnamon and sugar on top of bread and it makes it all crunchy. And again, I'm so hungry. I don't know why I didn't eat. It just adds to the overall feeling of the story. So goals, motivation, and conflict. Let's go ahead and talk about that. This concept, which is called GMC in acronym, it's from Deborah Dixon's book of the same name, and it can be found on Amazon if you'd like to go look for it. It's a great resource, and I suggest it for an author's tool chest for sure. So what is a goal? The main characters need to have a goal of what do they want? What's the thing that they want most in life? And then we have our motivation of those characters. Why do they want this goal? What makes it so important to them? And then we have conflicts. What will stop them from obtaining the goal? This is like the roadblock that's put in front of them. I put an example up here and I used How the Grinch Stole Christmas because I figure that a lot of us know that story either from the book or from the cartoon or from the live action. So the Grinch wants to ruin Christmas. That's his goal because he needs peace and quiet, motivation. But the spirit of the season makes the people of Whoville tough to break. That's his conflict. I'd also put in there his motivation is probably because he's been wronged in the past. And that's actually an internal motivation. We're going to talk about that next. So there is a goals, motivations, conflict sheet in our last chapter press learning library. Our learning library is available to our contracted authors, but I'm going to put a link in the chat so you can go get it. All right, pull this up here. All right, there we go. So you can take a look at that. That is the goals, motivations, conflict sheet that I use, and I suggest that it's pretty simple. It's based off of this example here, but we're going to go into each of these subject matters a little bit deeper. So let's give that a try. All right, romance story goals. Let's examine this. What do the main characters desire? They will have to have both an external goal, something that's happening to them from the outside, and an internal goal, something that's an emotion or feeling or something from the past that needs to be addressed. For example, one of my favorite movies is You've Got Mail. In this movie, we have Kathleen Kelly, And her goals are externally, she wants to save her small bookstore from this big corporate bookstore that's coming in on her block of New York City. And after communicating via AOL Messenger with this stranger, she also starts to want this mystery man. So she's got two goals going on externally. But she also has this internal goal because she wants to maintain the pride and self-worth that she's built up in this bookstore. It's part of her identity. And then we have Joe Fox, who is the main character, who's the male, and he wants to be ruthless in continuing his family's legacy with the big corporate bookstore. He's trying to be like his father and his grandfather. But once he meets Kathleen and sees what this is doing to her, because he's the person who is on the AOL Messenger, he starts to want her when he realizes who she is. His internal goal is to determine what he really wants in life. Joe is kind of a lost soul and he really is not happy. All right, goals often change through a book when a character is faced with choices and they have to make a decision. Let's look at motivation. So, what motivates these goals, which is the why of their goal? Why do they want it? So, in this example of You Got Mail, the bookstore is the legacy of Kathleen's upbringing, and it reminds her of her mother, and it's going to be hard for her to let go. It's a part of her. That's her motivation. On the other hand, Joe's motivation is mostly built off of what is expected of him from his family. We kind of get the idea that he doesn't really love what he does, but he's doing it out of expectation and commitment to his family. So lastly, conflicts. The conflicts of You've Got Mail are what's in the way of them getting what they want. And for Kathleen, the big bookstore is just too much for a little store. And spoiler alert, she has to close up shop. And she thinks the messenger guy stands her up for a date. So her heart is broken in two different ways. And she has to learn to find a new path for herself and have a new dream, basically. So Joe swoops in and he starts to woo her. But how can she fall for a man who was a big part of her past closing, her bookstore closing? That's another conflict. So it's like she loses these two conflicts, or they are taken care of, and then she has this new conflict. How can she fall for a man who would do this? So for Joe, after meeting Kathleen, he can't stop thinking about her, and he breaks up with his narcissistic girlfriend to find what he really wants in life. And it's Kathleen and love. So he has to find a way to her heart. I won't spoil the end, but there's a very iconic line in the end that is chef's kiss. Mwah. And I highly suggest watching it for the conflicts and also the resolutions that happen. They're very well done. All right, so we've added some spices and some seasonings to our romance. Now we're going to determine our story premise and concepts. So this is how I normally see it in my head, and I wrote it out. So name of heroine, once blank, because of blank, but blank is stopping her. Hero, name, once blank, because of blank, but blank is stopping him. Name, heroine, once, what does she desire? Because of what is her motivation? But conflict is stopping her. Same goes for the hero. I did not make this into a sheet, but if you want to take a quick screenshot, you're welcome to. I don't have any problems with that. So I can't tell you what those blanks should be for your own story. That's why you want to be an author, because you want to create the story. Okay, up next, we're going to talk about characters and setting as the next addition to our romance recipe. So settings. Setting is a lot more than just a room and what's in it. It can be the environment, it can be places, it can be animals and kids, to name a few. They all have personalities and want to be a character. We need to decide what these settings are and why they're there and what they'll mean to your character before writing. So, if you're going to have it set in a small town, why is it set in a small town? Is it because the main female character is from that small town and she's going back? Is it because the hero, he's lived there his whole life and he just can't imagine moving to a big city? So give a reason behind your settings, at least to yourself. So what feelings do you get when you hear a gloomy, rainy day? And that's just what I was thinking today. So for me, it was a little bit like melancholy. I can't go out. I can't go for my walk. A little bit sad because it's just kind of dreary. It's definitely a curl up in a fluffy chair and read a good book today. So that's a setting you can share with your readers through your character's eyes. They can see that everything is just a sepia gray tone outside. It's not really pretty. So you use the senses when you are thinking about setting. Like, what does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? And what does it taste like? And I'm going to say, hey, this is romance. There's sometimes some tasting going on. So let's look at an example, a couple of examples that I wrote up. So the room sighs heavily with ceiling to floor woven tapestries and a massive river stone fireplace bearing the weight of the past. So just from that, we can we can get the feeling that the room is huge. It's got space and it's going to dwarf the characters, right? They're going to feel small inside of this room, unless I mean they're a 6'7" huge mountain man, and perhaps he would feel comfortable in that room. But a 5'5" woman, even if she's relatively curvy, is probably going to feel quite dwarfed by the massiveness of this room. Or we could have the second option here. The wildflowers wave like happy fingers along the path down to the still pond. Bursts of fragrance dance around her nose, taking her back to her youth. So you definitely get a different feeling from that description of the setting. It's joyful, it's happy, it's sunshine, it's got a real liveliness to it, whereas the first one was kind of heavy and kind of pulls you down as a reader. All right. So next we're going to talk about building developed main characters. One of my favorite things to do. Okay. So let's look at the 20 question sheet. I created this and I'm going to find it. Yep, right here. Let me go on ahead and stop this share so I can go on ahead and start a new one. 20 question right there. All right, so this is my character in 20 quick questions. It basically starts with your basic things for a character, their name, maybe why they were named that, like are they named after their grandparent? Are they named after someone special? And then of course, age, gender, and then all of their physical attributes. And keep in mind to give them something that makes them unique. So maybe a wonky smile or a couple of dimples when they smile, that type of thing. Do they wear glasses? Do they have piercings or tattoos? Do they wear lots of makeup? Do they have colored hair? And then it starts going into like goals and stuff that maybe might affect their life that could be also an internal conflict, like PTSD or lack of trust, something like that. Their home, their car, their town. It just really goes through a nice selection of attributes that you can give to your characters without having. I went out and looked, and there was one listing that was like 500 characteristics that you had to fill in. And I'm like, okay, there's a moment where you have to start writing. So instead of developing your characters and having 500 of them, that might just be a smidge too much. So this is 20 questions. They each have a little bit of depth to them. I like, parents and siblings, what's their relationship like? Their health, their diet, their eating habits, two strengths, two weaknesses. And then also like, are they spontaneous? Are they spontan do they have spontaneity? Do they have pet peeves? What stresses them out? And then lastly, if someone was meeting them for the first time, what would that person say about them to someone else? I like that question. And then there's a space for anything else that you want. Okay. I'm going to, the link is coming up, I promise. It's also in the learning library. Okay, but I do have a couple of other tips. So let me get back to my share of my screen. All right. Okay, so a couple of hints and tips. Building a character is like building a house. There has to be a foundation, but occasionally there are cracks in the concrete, and these are flaws. Don't create a perfect person. Readers just don't bond to perfect people. They bond to people who have flaws because we know that we're all flawed. So we feel for that person. We can understand what they're going through because possibly we've been there too. Also, make sure that your character stays in character. I have seen this. I actually just read a romance where this first one is going to come up. Someone's choking in this restaurant and the nurse just sits there. And I was like, why is she not helping the person who is choking? So if it's a nurse, they help the person who's choking. If it's a veterinarian, they take care of the dog that's broken their leg on the side of the road. So they don't just drive by. Make sure that your character stays in character. Another one that I thought up was like a chef. If he went over to the heroine's character or the main character's house, um, the other main character's house, and she started making macaroni and cheese for him, he's likely to step in and maybe just like add some extra spices and whatnot to him. He probably won't like take over totally, but I think that it would be a good bonding moment. And of course, they would touch, and it's a small kitchen, so you gotta rub against each other getting to places. It's just the way that it happens. Okay. So I also want to give you a little tip that buffalo wing sauce on boxed mac and cheese is delicious. So there's my other food tip. I really swear that I'm hungry right now. Okay, and I also can't help but throw in a Friends meme because yeah, Friends is one of my special ones. So I cannot sell a Paolo. Paolo is basically only put in there as a way to make Ross jealous. He was just thrown in there for that. So, and she was talking about she's a romance writer and she can't sell him because he's basically one-sided. He's just a flat caricature, and we don't want that. All right. So if you'd like to get the next, my character in 20 questions, there you go. It's inside of the meeting chat. Let me know if those aren't showing up so I can put them in before the end, but otherwise we will move on. This is getting exciting because this is one of my favorite things to use. So I created this. This is the super story sheet. And I'm going to go on ahead and stop my share so that I can get it up here. All right. Where is it? Right there. Okay. Okay, so this is my super story sheet, and I think that this is probably going to be good for you. Um, After you have started all of your other sheets, after you've gotten all of them done, once you know what your story concept is, with your goals and your motivations and your conflicts, and then your characterizations of your main characters and even the important side characters you'd like to have in your book, then I would give this sheet a shot and see what you come up with, okay? It's almost like if you do cliff notes for a romance you're going to write. If someone had never read your story, they should be able to use this to go on ahead and tell somebody what your story is about. Okay. So we're going to take a look at it. We have first the intro, the middle, the dark moment, the resolution, and the epilogue. So this is basically a 4-act structure is that I'm using here. So every part of this is an act or a portion of a story. So we have our intro with the meet cute, and then it asks for 3 ways they can get to know each other. So that way you're kind of building an arsenal of a story. So you say, okay, I like 3 ways they can get to know each other. They play a game, they do speed dating, they go for a walk and talk, kind of thing. Which one feels authentic to your story? Okay, so we do that. The intro is them getting to know each other and for us to know what their conflicts are. All right, middle. What happens to complicate their goals? So, what is the confrontation of an issue and the falling out effect? Because we always want, if there's going to be a conflict and they're going to come to heads, basically, they're going to butt heads, we want to know what is happening afterwards. And then also in a romance, you need to show some physical attraction. So, how are we going to see that as a reader? And what will your non-sex scenes look like? Like, what can you have your characters doing that show that they're attracted to each other? Will it be glances across the room? Will it be that kitchen scene where they brush up against each other? Then we have our, once they've fallen in love and everything has happened the way it's supposed to, we have our dark moment, which is the final conflict. And how does that happen? So everything comes to a head. We know that they're not going to get back together. How do you make it believable? This is something that I see in a lot of romances where it's just not quite on my believable scale. It's just you have to have the two of them understand that they believe that they're not ever going to be together. Then we have a resolution, and we have what we call as the mentor moment. Who might they turn to help them realize they want to change? So that's called the mentor moment. So it might be a friend of the male MC, it might be a grandmother of the female MC, but they turn to this person and ask them, what can I do? What did I do wrong? What should I take a different path? And then what does the ending look like? This is kind of like your dream sheet. If I was going to write this romance, this would be my dream. And of course, then we usually have an epilogue in romance, which is where are they months or years down the line. So something quick there to do. I think, yep, I also have the if you do fill it out and you want to have somebody look at it, I'm definitely glad to look at it. You can email me, julie@lastchapterpress.com, and I'd be glad to take a look at it. And I'm going to put the link for that into our little chat here. Very good. All right. Okay, I'm going to stop this share real quickly. All right, and I'll start this one more time. All right, so that is it. Are there any questions you want to put into the chat? Does anybody have any thoughts or something that you'd like to learn? I would be glad to take some questions if you have some. If not, I don't see any coming up right now. But if not, the next meeting is Monday, April 9th. So I want you to know that I did have it down on the 9th, but it's not on the 9th. I have a conflict, so it's now on the 8th. So a week from today, 7 p.m. again. I'll have a link in the Friday Last Chapter Press newsletter. And I certainly hope that you can all be there. I'll get this up on YouTube by the end of the week, hopefully sooner. And please have a wonderful week. If I can do anything for you, let me know. All right. Take care. Bye.